This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today. I'm your host, Jay Scott, and I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field experiencing God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have Matt Woodward of Borderland Adventures, and Matt is kind of a jack of all trades and has outfitting businesses in several states and in Mexico, and is known as a great guy and a hard worker and a very good outfitter and guide. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm great, Jay. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. I thought we would start out by maybe you introducing yourself to us and my listeners and giving a little background on you and your operation.
Sure. Appreciate it. Well, we've been in business full-time since '07, so we haven't been around forever. But and my focus has always really been Arizona and the Southwest, and originally mostly Coues deer. And we've just kind of branched out from there. We do a lot of hunts in Mexico, Arizona. We've done Kansas for the last 4 or 5 years, some stuff in New Mexico also, but our big focus is really in Arizona and Mexico on most of the desert stuff.
Awesome. And Matt, tell me a little bit about your family, kids, etc.
Sure. I've got a wife she's a teacher. We live up here in the Verde Valley in central Arizona, and she works for the school district here. I've got a great 10-year-old son. This will be his first year hunting this next year, and he's in 4th grade up here. And we've actually lived in southern Arizona for the last decade or so and just relocated the family up to central Arizona about 2 years ago.
Gotcha. And Matt, what did you cut your teeth on as far as hunting, fishing? You know, what was your main focus, or how did you get your start?
I got started really hunting with my uncle, actually, and it was really Coues deer and javelina, desert mule deer, most of our desert stuff. I got started at a really young age. They started dragging me along when I was 7 or 8 years old on some of these hunts, and I started bow hunting when I was 10 years old, as soon as I was allowed to, and never missed a year for a lot of years now. And so I cut my teeth just hunting the desert for Coues deer, javelina, mule deer, stuff like that.
Awesome. And Matt, what is it about maybe people that haven't hunted Coues deer? You and I have a joint passion, and a bunch of them, but one specifically is Coues deer. In your idea, what is your explanation for the fascination with Coues deer?
Wow, really good question, Jay. They're just amazing. They've got a lot of similarities to a lot of the other animals that we hunt, all rolled up into one as far as I see it. We hunt mule deer and whitetails in Kansas, and mule deer actually in a few states. And these little Coues deer are just a totally unique animal, extremely wary, extremely hard to hunt, as you know. And they're just a whole separate class of animal as far as I'm concerned. So just really fascinated by them and always have been.
Yeah, I mean, until you hunt them or until you're around them, you know, I've had lots of hunters, as I know you have, come down to Mexico, say, or Arizona, and you know, by the end of the trip, they're just completely, you know, sold on the Coues deer and the fact that, you know, they're just incredibly beautiful and wary animals but, you know, have their own trophy, you know. People, I've had a lot of Midwestern hunters that, you know, are used to the much bigger racks and such, but then when they see, you know, say 100-inch Coues deer, you know, they're going, oh, he looks like a giant, he looks huge. And, you know, I think in relativity to their body, a 100-inch Coues deer can look giant compared to, say, a 160-inch Midwestern whitetail that, you know, might weigh, you know, 300 pounds.
Absolutely. They're just super impressive when they get up to that size. And like you said, once guys hunt them one time, a lot of folks from the Midwest and the rest of the country don't understand the fascination that we have with Coues deer until you've hunted them one time. And I'm sure that's a lot of how your business runs, and it's always been how my business runs. once we get them there one time and they hunt Coues deer, then they're a Coues deer hunter. These guys want to come back every year. Our hunters start building rifles and buying optics, and they turn into Coues deer hunters because they're just so addicting. At this point, probably 80% of our Coues deer business is just repeats. It's just guys who've coming back year after year after year to hunt Coues deer.
Yeah, and as far as optically, tell me about the transformation, so to speak, in the last however many years that you've noticed with, the quality optics and the necessity you see of having quality optics in order to hunt these deer.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I started like all the rest of us did with cheap binoculars, just carrying them around my neck. And sometime in the late 80s, we all kind of started getting into some really low-quality tripods and strapping our binoculars to the top of them. And it's just been a game changer for us, what we've done in the last 20 years with optics, using, big binoculars, high-power binoculars, and especially the tripods that we use these days. It's a whole different sport than it was even 15 years ago.
Absolutely. Matt, what do you carry around your neck when you're Coues deer hunting? What are your go-to glasses that you just carry? What are you carrying for rangefinder, spotting scopes, long-range glasses? What's in your pack?
I carry a whole bunch of stuff. There's a set of 10x42 Swarovski ELs around my neck, and a Swarovski rangefinder, a set of 15x56 Swarovskis, and then the big Kowa 32 power binoculars. And so I don't always carry those, but I've usually got 2 or 3 sets of optics on me at any given time, depending on what's going on. But I fell in love with the big glass in the last couple of years, as I know you use them a lot also, and those have really been a game changer for us for sure.
Yeah, it's until you really look through them, it's really hard to describe. But you can get up on high points and really have a real good command of an area and be looking at deer. Even these Coues deer at a mile away, and you still at times need a spotting scope to tell exactly what they are. But you can tell from a long ways away if it's a buck that you need to go after. Whereas I've been using the new 15s now this year and love the new 15 Swarovskis, and I have the 12s and the 10s and all of that. But there's just something about the big binocular. Can you give me a little bit of a idea of an application where you use those big binoculars?
Wow, yeah, I actually use them more than I probably should. I use them almost every day. I use them all through the off season. It's changed the way that I scout and the way that I hunt. Allowed us to back up further from the country that we're hunting and look over larger pieces of it at one time from better angles. Look into canyons that we normally couldn't look into. If you were inside a mile, you couldn't see in there, but if you back out to 2 or 2+ miles, they've been a game changer for us on every species, from bear to elk, muleys, whitetails in the Midwest. We'll get up on an oil rig and put the Kowas to work at 2-3 miles across the flats in the Midwest, and there's just so many examples. We are really using them on basically a daily basis at this point.
Absolutely. Matt, I know this year you had kind of a lightning strike in a matter of speech. You actually drew a desert bighorn sheep tag. Tell me a little bit about your hunt and what it meant to you to get to harvest your sheep. I know I watched your video, and it was obviously an emotional moment. Walk me through that a little bit.
It was. I appreciate it, Jay. I've been applying for sheep like everyone has my entire life in Arizona, and of course never thought I'd ever had a chance at drawing, and still had a really, really low chance at drawing even when I did. And I've always applied down in that southwestern corner of the state. I wanted that type of sheep. I wanted a Mexicana ram, and I wanted to hunt that part of the state. And like you said, lightning struck, and I drew the tag last year. Now with my schedule, it's not the normal sheep schedule at all. That time of year, I pretty much hunt every single day with some 24-hour turnarounds throughout the fall. I have to be honest with you, I scouted really hard on Google Earth and looked at the range, got to know the range, and got a couple of my best guides together, and we hunted in Kansas and then hunted Arizona, and then showed up on the third day of sheep season, blind to the unit, 6 of us, really not knowing where we're going, having a pretty good idea of where the drinkers were, where everything was, of how, the history of that particular range. And we saw 11 rams on the first day, and killed the sheep that I killed on the second day, which is just an absolute miracle. And we found him, thought it was a great sheep, decided to take him, and then come to find out he was kind of a legend in the area, and guys had hunted him for years. Guys had photographed him, tried to kill him back in 2009 and 10 and 11, 12, and then they thought he had disappeared. And we just got unbelievably lucky and super blessed, and ended up getting the sheep killed in a short amount of time. And then within 48 hours, we were out in Mexico again. So it was just a quick deal, really a short deal. But it's been a lifelong dream of mine. And my only regret is that I didn't get to hunt sheep for a month. That's really my only regret there, for sure.
Yeah, they're truly special animals for sure. Just awesome in every way. How did your hunts in Mexico go this year for the Coues deer and the mule deer? I tried to keep up a little bit with Facebook with some of our own hunts down there. It was a little bit difficult at times. How would you say overall the season went, maybe compared to other years, or compared to this year itself? How did it go?
Sure. I feel we had a tough year this year. One of the toughest years I've had down there in recent years. And I'm not sure exactly what to attribute that to. We had such great range conditions on a lot of our properties, which was unusual. We had just fantastic amounts of forage and feed and grass everywhere. I thought deer were a little bit scattered this year. And so it was kind of an unusual year for us. Our average was down a few inches this year. We usually keep a really high average in Mexico, and we were a few inches lower this year than we have been. We managed to get most of our bucks killed and killed some really good ones, but we didn't kill any really top-end bucks this year. So it was definitely a little bit of a down year for us.
One of the things that Dara and I noticed, we spent, I think, the 6th of January through the 22nd down there this year, trying to, capture that rut time as good as possible. And we had 2 different groups, on the front end and on the back end. And, we had this similar situation. We had, feed that, and grass that we hadn't seen, we thought, oh man, the country just looks incredible. But, I can't say that antler growth was that spectacular. It wasn't definitely not, as good as the country looked. The antlers didn't follow suit. What kind of rut did you have? Ours seemed to be kind of spotty. Just seemed like kind of an odd year. Did you see the same thing?
I did, Jay. We were down there the entire time. Essentially, I was there by about the 6th or 7th of December, right up to Christmas, and then right back after Christmas, and I came home on February 13th. So I was there for essentially the entire duration of the rut and post-rut activity, and everything was just, it seemed to be down. It seemed to be real spotty. We never had any one time period in January that was just explosive and with lots of big deer on their feet, which we had experienced, especially on this particular ranch for the last few years. We've been kind of really tracking that, and we've killed a lot of really good bucks there. And this year it was just really spotty rut activity, kind of scattered. Some of the best deer I saw moving were actually before Christmas. And then those deer were just alone and not doing hardly anything on January 10th. And so we had really odd rut this year.
It's funny you mentioned January 10th. To me, year in and year out, having gone down to Mexico every year and not missed a single year since the late 90s, if someone said, talking mountain ranches, not way down by Hermosillo. Let's just talk about, ranches fairly close to the U.S. border. prime rut dates. Typically, the 10th through the 20th is when I see the most chasing, the most rutting, type behavior. What would be the window you would say? I know you hunt some of the same ranches that are in the same, vicinity and same latitude line. What's your thoughts?
I agree. Those have always been historic dates that we always wanted to be there. Sometimes I'll stretch that a little bit later, only because we've just got a track record of killing some of our better bucks that last week of January. But yeah, I would agree. Sometime January 10th, 12th, all the way through the 25th or so is that optimum window to be down there.
Sure. I noticed that you guys branched into shooting some mule deer, and maybe I haven't noticed the last couple of years, but was this year the first year you did mule deer down there, and how did it go? And I know you killed one particular buck that was kind of a non-typical. Tell me a little bit about that buck.
Yeah, that was a fantastic buck. Mario Guisto actually guided Mr. Hugh Frazier from Wyoming on that buck. That was a mid-190s type buck. Kind of an interesting triple forked 6x6, a really unique buck, and we did kill a couple other mule deer this year. We've never been really big into mule deer. We don't do a lot of mule deer. We just had an opportunity to do a couple and jumped on it, and we're may do a few here in the future. Coos deer will always be our focus. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We hunted mule deer more like we hunt coos deer. We were just glassing and getting on high points and spent a lot of time looking and looked over just tons and tons of mule deer. Let a couple of giants slip through the cracks and killed a couple of pretty good bucks. So
that's awesome. I know you're up there in the Verde Valley. What has the moisture been like as of late? And I know you do elk hunts and other Arizona hunts. What is your forecast? I know it's a little early, but what is your forecast for 2015 with what you're seeing?
Well, I'm not sure what to think. We're just underwater up here. It's been raining and snowing. We've got more snowpack right now than we've had in a few years. I was out actually putting trail cameras out this morning and couldn't even get to a couple spots because the creeks, what were dry creek beds, even a few days ago, are running too hard right now. We are just covered up in water. Everything's full. I live right here on Oak Creek, and Oak Creek is still blown out. Yeah, I'm not sure what to think. We're going to have a lot of moisture, a lot of forage on the ground. I think we're going to have some really big bulls this year. I think elk are going to be scattered and spread out. There's going to be water everywhere, and hopefully if this keeps up, there's going to be great feed everywhere, and let some of this water carry over through our dry season. And it could be just a banner year for Arizona, for the whole Southwest, in fact. New Mexico and Utah and Colorado have got a little bit of moisture this year also, more than they have in the past, and just looks really good this year.
Awesome. What units are you primarily focusing on for elk in Arizona, Matt?
Elk, our big focus is 8 and 7 West and 6A and 6B. That's where we spend probably 90% of our time.
Awesome. And you do both the archery and the muzzleloader early rifle hunts as well as the late hunts?
That's correct. Yeah, we do mostly archery and a few early rifle muzzleloader hunts, and then typically just a small group on the late rifle hunt before we head down from Mexico.
I haven't hunted any of those units, very little. I've been a little bit in 8. I helped my cousin for a day in Unit 8 on a bull back in 2001. I don't know those units well. How do those elk bugle? I mean, I've heard that, I definitely, wouldn't put those units at the very top of the ladder of, premium units in Arizona,
Sure.
But maybe you can educate me. My experience has been the bugling's a little more spotty, and what are your thoughts on that?
It is. I think all those units that I mentioned are units that take more scouting and take a little bit more effort to stay on elk. They're not top tier units for sure. I think the statistics show you that. and just their track records. But they do have really good elk in them, and they've got really good bulls in all those units. And part of our key and part of that is the tag situation, and it's getting tags. We can hunt those units a lot more often on a lot more regular basis than we can some of the top tier units. So there's a lot of guys that we've been hunting elk with for the last couple of years, and they're on their third archery elk hunt with us because they're applying for those types of units. And again, we're not hunting those top tier bulls for sure. We're having a lot of fun and chasing really good quality bulls and getting into some fantastic. We this year, in fact, this last year was some of the best and most intense bugling action that I've ever been around in some of what are considered Arizona's lower end units, with some really large caliber elk doing it. So,
what days were you finding this last year? Was it a late Bugle Fest in the archery season?
Our big Bugle Fest this last year would have been early part of the second week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the second week of the bow hunt, as it was getting ready to close. We got into some just fast and furious action and had a lot of elk around and had a fantastic time chasing them. Although we had some pretty good action this year in the first week, although this year's first week was really unusual to us. The calling was a little bit different. We blew a cow call at a couple bulls and they'd turn and leave. And then you challenge them with the bugle, they'd stick around, and we ended up bugling bulls in the first week. And challenging him, and called in multiple bulls and ended up killing a really good bull that way, after just tormenting him long enough to turn around and come in and fight, and calling bulls away from their cows that first week. So it was just a really unusual rut calling situation that first week. And then the second week, midweek, things tend to just crank off for us really good.
That's awesome. And your forecast for this season for elk, obviously you said is very good. How's it looking for hunter numbers for you? And obviously we're relying on the draw, all of us as outfitters and as hunters. But what are some of those units? Are they taking non-residents? 3 points? Are they 8 points? What's kind of the window?
They're more in that 7 to 10 or 11 point class. So They're not max point type hunts, but they're max pool hunts. Some of those hunts that I mentioned are 7 and 8 point hunts, and then I think 10 and 11 point hunts, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha.
And so depending on where a guy's at, he just doesn't have to wait that extra chunk of years to jump up into one of what's considered one of Arizona's top tier units.
Sure. And let's shift gears a little bit for the Coues deer in Arizona. With the regulations for deer not out yet, and we don't have to apply till June, but it's a little premature. But what are the units that you like to focus in for the rifle hunts for Coues deer in Arizona? What are your primary focus units?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the leftover tags and the easy to draw tags, 100% draw tags along the border. Having lived down there for so long and basically building my outfitting business along the border, I've hunted all of the 35 or 34, 35, and 36s basically across the border, and I love that stuff. It allows guys to hunt every year and get drawn every year. But that being said, we're spending a little bit more time focusing on some of our central Arizona stuff, like units 21 and 6A and 6B and 8, for that matter, for Coues also. So we've been spending quite a bit more time up in central Arizona. And this coming year looks like we're going to do a little bit of both. A few things will depend on the draw. For late rifle tags, we've got a handful of bonus point holders going in this year for late rifle tags. And then we'll actually run an early camp down on the border, and then an early camp in central Arizona also.
Gotcha. And you also do, I believe, some hunts in New Mexico, do you not? And for what species have you?
Just antelope and just a few. So we've got a great ranch in New Mexico that we've been hunting for years now. and it's mostly just fills up with repeats. It's just a fantastic property in central New Mexico.
Gotcha. And do you do any of the antelope hunts in Arizona, or is it all New Mexico?
We do. Yeah, it's just so draw dependent. We end up with just an antelope client or two each year, mostly just our regular clients that occasionally draw, and then occasionally we'll get a call on antelope. So we don't do a ton of Arizona antelope, but we've done maybe a dozen or so over the years.
Gotcha. I want to talk to you a little bit about gear and the fact that I'm not sure if you're running a side-by-side or a quad, or if you're just running your truck. What's your main mode of transportation during the hunting season? And tell me your setup, your tires, some of the stuff that you've found that works well for you.
Sure. Well, we beat our trucks up really, really bad, and I've actually got a kind of a combination of everything that you mentioned there. I've got a Toyota Tacoma with a fantastic old man emu suspension system on it that I've done a ton of custom work to, and a ton of bracing and frame bracketing and support, and we put a lot of effort into the Tacoma and made it pretty much bulletproof. And I've also got a 1997 Toyota Land Cruiser. It's essentially set up the same way. It's a fantastic off-road rig. And then I've got a side-by-side. I've got a Polaris Ranger Crew, one of the 4-seat ones that we use quite a bit also. But so we run Toyota trucks. Most of my guides run Toyota trucks. I've gone through lots of trucks in the past, and I tend to beat them up really hard. And these ones are doing really good for me and lasting. So tires are about my worst enemy right now. I'm running the Goodyear MTR with Kevlar and having awesome luck with them, and I'm probably going to run those on a couple of rigs this year. They were a fantastic tire for us this last season, but I blew through 3 or 4 sets of mud terrains last year on these rocks, and it's tough on tires out here. So,
is that a 10-ply tire or 8-ply?
I believe it is a 10-ply tire, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha. And Matt, are you running trail cameras? You said you were out setting trail cameras this morning. Was that primarily for deer or for elk, or what was that for?
I was actually working on some archery deer cameras this morning. So I went out and made a little loop hike and dropped off a couple of cameras in an area that it's one of those deals. I saw a deer in there. I got a glimpse of a deer in there. And just trying to relocate him. So we're actually looking for a particular deer. So, yeah, I do run a lot of trail cameras year round. We've got trail cameras running in Mexico and even some in Kansas right now, and kind of scattered all over the place in Arizona. Just a really big part of what we do. Most of our trail cameras are just, you'd be amazed. Most of them are just on trails. We don't do hardly anything on water. We do quite a bit on some salt, on just essentially just cattle salt, granulated salt, and just on travel corridors. So we run a lot of cameras in a lot of remote locations for all kinds of hunts, whether they be coos deer or elk, or just trying to locate animals and locate particular animals.
And what brand of cameras have you found work best for you?
We're running a huge assortment. I've got a lot of DLC covert cameras, and we make a minor little adjustment to the sensor with a little piece of tape, and those have been my best bet right now. The new Moultrie cams are just awesome. I can't even kick out the model number right now, but I've got a couple of those in the field, and those are really, really nice cameras. I've had good luck with those so far, and so I'd say probably 75% of what I'm running right now is DLC covert.
Gotcha. And do you find that those give the best picture quality, or for the money and the rapid response and what you catch on camera, do you feel like they're the best, or are they even better with photo quality?
The photo quality is really good. Most of the cameras I set, particularly the ones I set this morning, were all set on 8 megapixels. So we get really good photo quality out of them. The sensors aren't the fastest out there. I've used some other cameras like Cuddyback, who I think has really fast sensors that I've had some problems with. And so far so good with the DLC coverts as far as reliability. I've had a couple fail on me, but that's out of probably over 30 of them that I've got in the field. So relatively good success with them so far.
Gotcha. That's awesome stuff. Why don't you tell me about, is there a specific deer that maybe over the last several years that you had targeted with a hunter, and kind of walk me through your plan of attack and how you executed your plan as far as getting a particular deer, Coues deer maybe down in Mexico shot?
Sure. Trying to think of cite a good example there. Well, as far as I've got an Arizona example that really relates to just scouting, and it has to do with an archery deer that we killed last August. That was just 2 years of hard scouting. We ended up running 6 trail cameras on a little bachelor herd of bucks, and bouncing the cameras back and forth for almost 2 years, in an effort to figure out exactly where and how to kill these deer. And when the time came, we actually slipped in 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday afternoon and put the hunter in a blind and shot a fantastic deer within about 45 minutes. And I think that's just a testament to scouting. Like I said, we bounced around for 2 years before we ever sat that spot, before we ever figured out exactly where we needed to be and when we needed to be there. And then when the time came, we pounced and got it done. So, I just think that's, again, just another testament to diligent, hard scouting and paying attention to your critters.
Gotcha. Did you just get off a javelina hunt? Did you do some stuff here in February?
I did. I just did a couple javelina hunts down in southern Arizona. A couple of great clients of ours ran down, and Brandon Goodwin and his wife Leanne met me down there for a couple quick days, and they had an awesome hunt over Valentine's. It was right after I finished up with Mexico and drove straight into that. And on the second morning of their hunt, we found a group of javelinas, snuck in. He made a great shot, killed one with a bow. Within about 2 or 3 minutes later, she had one down with the pistol, and we pulled a Valentine's morning double with those folks. It was just fantastic. And then a week later, I had another hunter come in for the general hunt, and we grabbed a bow and went out and got it done on the first morning, actually. Just slipped in close and got a nice archery javelina killed. So got to do a little bit of hunting, didn't get to spend a lot of time doing it, but got a few javelina killed this year.
Nice. Matt, do you have any animals that you have a lot of points for in Arizona personally that you're striving, since you've already gotten your desert sheep? Is there anything in particular that you're like hoping to draw or think you have a chance to draw?
Well, I wish. I've got 13 bonus points for turkey in Arizona, hoping to draw a Gould's turkey tag. I'm trying to draw a particular tag and haven't had any luck with that. So, and I'm back up there pretty high in antelope points. I drew an archery antelope in southern Arizona back in, I think, 2003. Killed a nice archery antelope down on the border. And so I'm getting pretty close to due for an archery antelope tag here in the next couple of years. Probably not really close on anything like bison. And of course, that's the next big push is, of course, now I want to kill a Rocky. So I've got half a lifetime still to apply for those. And I imagine I'll draw a Gould's tag here in the next couple of years and an antelope tag, if I had to guess. But burn up all my elk points last year to hunt with some friends, and I'm burning up my couple again this year just to help ensure that my son gets an elk tag on his first year of applying. So looks like I'll probably be doing some cow elk hunts here in the next few years with the kids.
Awesome. How much does wild game meat play into you guys as a family, into your diet? A lot. We basically live off wild game meat. I think we've got antelope, elk, coos, mule deer, bison, whitetail, even some oryx here at the house right now. We eat it year round. We give away a ton to friends and family, literally just ice chests full of it. And we just live off it. My wife's a fantastic cook.
We use some of it in some of our outfitted hunts, not a ton, but we try to incorporate some game meat into most of our hunts, and we basically just live off it. Though my wife actually drew a bison tag up on the House Rock Ranch this year, so we've got a Kaibab bison tag for this summer for a cow hunt, a big freezer filler for us. So looking forward to that. But yeah, we spend a lot of time just taking care of meat, and we've probably got 4 freezers running at the house here right now, and we run a lot of meat through this house for sure.
That's awesome. Matt, what is something that people might not know about you as far as outside of hunting, maybe that you like to do? Do you have any other passions other than hunting, and what might that be?
I'm a passionate fisherman. I'm really a fly fisherman at heart, but I'd love to fish any way that I can. But I've been fly fishing and tying flies since I was a little kid, and probably started tying when I was in 3rd grade. And I fly fished, just kind of dabbled all the way across the West and in Alaska and Western Canada. And I don't get to do it as much anymore as I'd like to, but I love to fly fish. That'd be definitely my secret.
Sounds like you and I have a lot more in common than I knew about. I knew you fished. I didn't know to the extent of how much you like to fish. That's fantastic. Do you get up into Oak Creek much at all, or have you in the past?
I do. I think I fished 3 times last week before the rains came. It's blown out right now, but yeah, I spend a lot of time on Oak Creek all the off season. And my off season is just kind of starting right now. We'll do a little bit of turkey hunting and stuff and some bear hunting this spring, but for the most part, we're just kicking into our off season. So we'll get to the point here where I'll get a chance to fish a couple days a week, whether it just be here in Oak Creek or even Beaver Creek locally, or run up to Lee's Ferry or even to one of our bass lakes. So in the summertime, I'll do a fair amount of fishing for sure, and a ton of time on Oak Creek.
That's awesome. Before the rain, how was Oak Creek fishing, and what was going on the creek as far as bug life and such?
You know what? It's been cold and it was off color, and so I was fishing some streamers and catching some little stalkers, kind of in what I consider the center of Oak Creek, above my house, but downstream from Sedona. And it was okay actually. They've got some new fish in there. The fire didn't damage it too bad. Actually, we had a lot of concerns about what was going to happen to the creek after the big fire last year, and I think it's in pretty good shape. They're putting a lot of fish in this year, and I think things are going to be just fine. But it was slow. That was my first chance to really get out and fish. So I got out. I probably caught just a half dozen or so fish in a couple tries, and then of course the river blew out, and it's been blown out ever since. So.
Yep. Well, hopefully it'll clear up for you here soon. Mm-hmm. And on one hand, as an elk hunter and an outfitter, I'm sure you're hoping that it stays muddy for quite some time, and we keep having storms all the way into April. But if you get some clear days, I wish you the best of fishing. It's been fantastic talking to you here. Matt, how can people find you? Website, Facebook, Instagram. What's the best
absolutely
ways of contact?
Our website is www.Borderland Adventures, and we're very active on Facebook also. So you can just type in Borderland Adventures on Facebook and find us. And I'd say that's probably the easiest way to track us down. And really appreciate you having me on today, Jay.
Yeah, it's been great, and I just want to wish you the best of success, and really appreciate you being on, and it's nice to get a look into your operation and see how you're doing, and look forward to talking to you again, and wish you well in the draws, and be chatting at you down the road here, and just thanks for spending some time with us.
Fantastic, Jay. Much appreciated.
Take care, Matt.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was a good show with Matt Woodward of Borderland Adventures. Thank you to our listeners for listening and spending your time with us. We thank you for the support. If you like what you're hearing, we could always use good ratings on iTunes. You can follow along with our adventures at jscottoutdoors.com, at Instagram, at JScottOutdoors, my associate Dar Colburn, at Dar Colburn. We also have a successful YouTube channel. If you haven't checked that out, J Scott Outdoors on YouTube. We have over 1 million hits and 1,250 subscribers or so. Just want to thank you guys for tuning in, and thank Matt for being with us today. And until next time, guys, God bless. Thanks for listening to the J Scott Outdoors Western Big Game Hunting and Fishing Podcast, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today.